Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. And today on Patriot Radio, peace in Ukraine, but no peace for the Houthis. And our guest today is going to be talking about the Great Taking and what it means for your assets never really to belong to you anymore, and you didn't even know it. Here at Patriot Radio, we want to give you the information before everyone else so you and your family can be prepared for the times ahead and the times that are already upon us. But no fear, we were made for this. So follow us for real-time intelligence updates on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram. And as you read through all of this, this should be impelling you to prayer points, what to pray for in the world, how you should share this with your friends and family. We're not just trying to warn people and make people afraid. This should take the fear out of it. But if you are feeling fear, you're walking through something tough in your life, we would love to pray with you. So you can send us a prayer request at patriotradio.us/prayer, and our prayer team will pray with you and continue to pray with you. So please, wherever you're at in the United States, you are not alone. We want to be with you. Also, we want everyone to have a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. That's the whole reason we have Patriot Radio. It's the whole reason that we talk about the things that we talk about, because we're not supposed to just sit back and let stuff happen to us. We're supposed to become sons and daughters of the King. And when we become sons and daughters of the King, then we can expand his kingdom throughout the earth and make disciples of all nations. Now, that doesn't mean we have to do it and then Jesus will return or something like that, although that's what the left always tries to say. But it does mean that we have a responsibility as Christians, but it all starts with giving your life to Jesus. So if you want to take that walk of salvation, patriotradio.us/salvation, we would love to pray with you and lead you to Jesus Christ. That brings us now to your wisdom from the Word for today, coming to us from Matthew chapter 16, verse 24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. So we're not supposed to end at the cross. We give our lives to Jesus. We're not supposed to end at the cross. We're supposed to pick up our cross and follow Jesus. That's why it's the gospel of the kingdom, not the gospel of salvation, although both are important. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what good will it do a person if he gains the whole world but forfeits his soul? Or what will a person give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with the angels and will repay every person according to his deeds. Deeds doing what? Deeds expanding the kingdom. We actually will be given a crown for the good deeds that we have done on earth. It's not talking about bad deeds, but those who are not saved do face eternal hell, fire, judgment. Now, people really don't like talking about hell, but hell exists. In fact, I believe it's a memorial, actually, of what not to do, because that's how it will be redeemed. We see hell, though, quite often as a subject not to talk about or to hold over somebody and force them to do something. That's not what it is at all. We all have a choice, and there can be no true love without a choice. So you can choose to be with God or without God, but there is a consequence when you're not with him. But God's will is that all should be saved. That's why he sent his Son to die for us on the cross. So in this time of uncertainty, especially internationally, be grounded on the rock of Jesus Christ. And that brings us now to your daily intelligence briefing. Coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us.
Is it?
We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
Except those means are being taken away by President Trump right now. Praise the Lord. All right. Just like Amazon, Google, and Meta plan to triple nuclear energy capacity by 2050. Hey, do you think they listened to yours truly when I was in the legislature about how we needed more nuclear power? Or it's just the expedient thing to do now? Either way, it's happening. What we're going to see usher in is small modular nuclear reactors, which are reactors that can be scaled to, for example, an industrial park or a business park. Also, we're going to see micro nuclear reactors. And also, there's another piece of technology with that, with natural gas and hydrogen fuel cell technology that can be put in an individual house. So maybe you have the micro nuclear reactor for an apartment complex. Maybe you have the hydrogen fuel cells at a house. And if that's the case, it will eliminate transmission lines, which means that when violent storms come in, you're not going to have a bunch of people lose power because the natural gas lines are underground. Now, there is something called recombination technology, which is like a car alternator. It's a really rough comparison that recaptures some of the energy in the hydrolysis process, which is where electricity is used to split hydrogen and oxygen from water, H2O, into just hydrogen as part of these fuel cells. But the exhaust from this is water vapor. It's amazing. Amazing technology. So we're seeing innovation come just now because AI is taken front and center, but there's going to be some other benefits that people aren't talking about, and I want you to hear it here first. Hydrogen fuel cell technology at the house level, micro nuclear reactors for like apartment complexes, and maybe hospitals, those kind of things. But then you have small modular nuclear reactors for bigger areas, business parks, etc. But the point is, when you have buried power lines, all of this will make it so that when a storm comes through, you'll still have power to a majority of places. So it's an amazing, amazing technology. It's about time we talk about it. So at least on the globalist agenda, there is some good news, even though I don't trust where the AI is headed, and neither should you. Hunter Biden has had his Secret Service protection for an extended period of time, all paid by the U.S. taxpayer. As many as 18 people on his detail. And he's vacationing in South Africa right now, and that's going to be removed. And Trump is holding the globalists accountable, even if it is in small ways. An absolute bombshell from Elon Musk on the latest episode of Verdict with Ted Cruz. And if you don't understand this, I want you to see this quote. If we can bring that article up, that'd be great. He reveals there are 14 magic money computers in the federal government that create money out of nothing. This is the Federal Reserve System. This is the whole scam behind the Federal Reserve System. Now, people will argue, well, it's not really printing money and blah, 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 blah. Here's the bottom line. It is created out of nothing, and then they charge interest on this created money, and that is what the Federal Reserve does. That's how it makes its money. There is an off-the-books amount, which is some people estimating in the tens of trillions of dollars. There is an on-the-books account. Both of them have never been audited. And by the way, there's no real accountability. In the Federal Reserve is not federal. It's actually a private corporation that was given a special charter by the U.S. Congress. And it's not a reserve. It doesn't really keep money around. It actually is the reason we have had huge ups and downs in our economy, even though they said that that's what would not happen if there was a Federal Reserve. The bottom line is it's about control, and the fact that this conversation is being had by Ted Cruz and Elon Musk, I think, shows us the future, that the Federal Reserve will likely be eliminated at some point, and it will be replaced by AI. That is the plan. Not saying I agree with it being replaced by AI. I don't think it should be replaced by anything except for the U.S. Treasury, which is supposed to be dealing with our monetary checks, budget, and also the auditing of all this. Needs to come back to the oversight of Congress. That brings us now to the China front. China says it's detected Taiwan has said that it's detected 59 Chinese aircraft around Taiwan. Very heavy PLA activity today. You can see on this map here, 43 out of 59 sorties crossed the median line and entered Taiwan's northern, central, and southwestern and eastern air defense identification zones. 2 PRC balloons as well. Again, the Chinese are probing. This could be a very clear indicator they're doing this probing for an invasion on the near term. Maybe less than 2 years at this point. Can China keep winning without fighting? Well, that's a great question. Instead of direct military conflict, China relies on economic, diplomatic, and technological influence. The problem is that, for the Chinese at least, that Trump is calling them to account on this. And he is beginning to call their bluff. Now, there was a secret speech by General Chi Watian back 20 years ago that said specifically that if the Chinese communists thought they were going to lose power, they would go to war to preserve power. Also, the Chinese are suffering from a demographic plunge right now, which means they are running out of people eventually. So everything is pointing to a near-term war instigated by China so the Communist Party can keep control. However, it looks like Xi Jinping might be trying to buy time, which is why President Trump says China's president will be visiting with him in the not too distant future. Also, China is upset by the Panama Canal deal. The deal is an act of hegemony by the U.S. Yeah, it's ours. We built it. It was our treaty that was violated. And by the way, we didn't even get into the fact that the treaty wasn't even signed by both parties, the same treaty. Yes, go look that up. Which uses its state power to infringe upon the legitimate rights and interests of other countries through despicable means such as coercion, pressure, and inducement. No, we were just enforcing a treaty. But this tells me this was an important part of the Chinese strategy that President Trump, Marco Rubio, disrupted. Also, Australia is moving to arm troops with anti-ship missiles. 2 types of advanced anti-ship missiles, including fired from mobile launchers. Talked about this briefly last time. This is a huge step forward. The more man-portable and vehicle-portable anti-ship, anti-tank, and anti-air launchers that can be dispersed through Australia will mean a huge deterrence against the ambitions of China. Vietnam registered Tonkin Gulf Sea boundaries with the United Nations under the UNCLOS. So Vietnam did this in response to a unilateral change of baselines by China a few months earlier, which can be seen as a possible attempt to change the agreed-upon median line boundary in the Gulf of Tonkin. Now, if you don't know the Gulf of Tonkin, that is literally the place that helped start the Vietnam War. That was a location. So this is pushback against China because they keep publishing maps, as you can see here, for example, on Chinese milk tea brand Chaggy, displaying the 9-dash line despite facing a boycott of Vietnam. So this is kind of one of those subtle ways that China tries to influence opinion, is by making something which is not fact, at least in the perspective of China, making it fact on an information warfare campaign so that it's already accepted before it's actually changed. It's a very common communist tactic, which is also why a Chinese influencer was given 10 days to leave Taiwan after pushing military annexation. Yes, we don't have to keep people in the United States, or Taiwanese don't have to keep them in Taiwan, for that matter, if they're seeking to undermine the country. That's absurd. Why would we ever agree to something like that? We never really have. The Chengdu Aircraft Corporation in China carried out its second test flight today of a prototype, which is calling a 6th-generation fighter. Really, this just looks like another example of a wing. I would not take this for more than it really is, although it does say there is clearly an arms race between China and the United States regarding technology. That brings us now to the Middle East front. Israel has begun military operations once again in the Gaza Strip. The large-scale strike campaign, meaning that negotiations between Israel and Hamas have fully collapsed. Now, this responsibility lies fully on Hamas, and there's people out there trying to debate that, but I don't think there really is a debate. They started it. Israel's going to finish it. U.S. National Security Council spokesperson said Hamas had a chance to release the hostages and extend the ceasefire, but it has chosen war. Key Hamas figures were eliminated in the surprise attack by Israel overnight, including their Director General of the Ministry of Interior, member of the Hamas Political Bureau, actually two members of the Hamas Political Bureau, the head of the Internal Security Apparatus, and the Director General of the Hamas Ministry of Justice. Here's their pictures. All of them eliminated very quickly, and it is being reported that at least 200 higher-ranking members of Hamas were eliminated in those strikes. I'm sure it's going to take days to figure that out. Israeli forces also captured suspected terrorists in the West Bank, what we would call Judea and Samaria, overnight as well. And the United States is moving significant military force into the Red Sea as the United States has begun strikes on the Houthis. The U.S. Fifth Fleet has now entered a phase of, quote, sustained combat operations, end quote, within CENTCOM's area of responsibility. And very interestingly, the things that have been struck are not just missile launchers, but terror training camps, and also Houthi leadership has been targeted. And according to some reports, severe losses by the Houthis and their leadership have already occurred. We'll have more on that as we get it confirmed. There's also an unconfirmed report. We've been looking at this for over 48 hours. We're trying to get this confirmed that an Iranian intelligence ship was sunk by U.S. forces. This is the famous Zagros SIGINT ship, and multiple sources in Arab media have reported this. We are going to try to confirm this here by the next episode. Lebanese army has having severe clashes with its special forces and members of the Syrian military as well on the border between Lebanon and Syria as those clashes continue. By the way, Lebanon didn't really do this. The Syrian military came into Lebanon trying to expand its reach, apparently, because some of those elements are, again, ISIS connected and out of control. So expect that to be a flashpoint into the very near future. Explosions and air defense activity were also heard near Meza Air Force Base in the southwest of Damascus, which was previously operated by the Syrian Air Force before the Assad regime. Israel is targeting those things to completely degrade HTS and their ability to expand power beyond the borders of Syria. And lastly, Islamists ride trucks with loudspeakers through a Christian neighborhood in Damascus. Let's just call them jihadis because that's what they are, telling them to convert to Islam. If you don't understand this, before they can begin to slaughter Christians, they have to offer them the chance to say the Shahada or the confession of faith to Islam. This is one of the things that is required in Islam. So if you don't understand this and the import of this, you're going to miss it. They are literally telling the Christians your days are numbered in Damascus. Also, Iran's Khomeini said no to get negotiations with the U.S. America can't stop Iran from getting nukes if it chooses. Sanctions are ineffective. Well, that raises a whole bunch of other questions. When we come back from the break, more from the Russia front and peace in Ukraine.
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs. Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for U.S.-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
The new Supporting Patriots show on Patriot TV spotlights great Patriot-owned companies and introduces them to Patriot consumers, encouraging them to buy American-made. If you're an America-loving patriot that owns and operates his or her own business, and you have made in America products or services, you're the perfect candidate to be interviewed on the Supporting Patriots show. If you'd like to be considered for an interview, email us at supportingpatriots@patriot.tv.
And we're back with the Russia front. Now, it's important as peace talks ensue in earnest that we understand that the only Ukrainian region in which ethnic Russians formed the majority before the invasion was Crimea. This is a really good map showing that, detailing it. Just because somebody speaks Russian doesn't mean they're ethnically Russian. The second point here that's very important to understand is that just because somebody is ethnically Russian doesn't mean that they actually support Russia. So it's a historical fact that the former Soviet Union intentionally moved ethnic Russians into this area of Ukraine in anticipation of a future conflict. You can read about this with a lot of the authors that I have talked about before. But probably New Lives for Old by Anatoly Golitsyn kind of gets to the heart of this. There's many more that have talked about this. So it's important to understand this, and I don't hear a lot of people accurately talking about it. But that brings us to the announcement today that President Trump had a phone call with Vladimir Putin. The phone call went extremely well, and Russia has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire on energy infrastructure, and more importantly, has agreed to a framework of moving forward to discuss a more permanent peace. Russian military bloggers also reported today that the Ukrainian army has crossed into Russia in the Belgorod region again. They say authorities are evacuating villages there, and again, this is more posturing before peace talks ensue. Also, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania all announced that they will be leaving the Ottawa Treaty, which bans the use of anti-personnel mines. Why would they do that? Because the borders of Russia and Belarus are about to be mined very soon. In addition, Macron announces that French fighter jets with nuclear warheads will be deployed to an airbase near the German border by 2035. These air bases were marked actually for closure. So, Europe continues to arm up. Hungary bans gay pride parade, marches in public spaces to protect their children, which raises quite a bit of consternation from the Marxists in Hungary. Russian former President Medvedev commented on the Trump-Putin call, and he said he was hoping to become Putin's successor, but too many alcohol scandals were lately tarnishing his reputation. Anyway, he's now trying to get back into some kind of political relevance, but he said this: the phone call between Presidents Putin and Trump proved a well-known idea. There is only Russia and America in the dining room. Well, I don't think Ukraine's going to like that very much. And that brings us now to the South America front. The most voted congressman in Brazil's history and son of former President Jair Bolsonaro has gone into exile in the United States because they were starting the process to revoke his passport. Don't blame him. But at some point, Trump is going to have to flex his muscle on the communists in Brazil. That brings us to the national front. President Trump said yesterday he will officially release all of the JFK files today. People have been waiting for decades for this. Approximately 80,000 files, and Representative Anna Paulina Luna said she has received official confirmation from the National Archives that when they go public, they will be at the link below. I want to make sure that we get this posted up on all of our platforms so you have access to this link. Last time it was extremely interesting, and as I detailed in a show a couple of weeks ago regarding the existence of a CIA report that Adolf Hitler actually survived World War II, and there was a picture of him with a Colombian mayor in 1959. That was just one of the things that didn't have anything to do with the Kennedy assassination, but was archived in there because it was the hardest file to get released. Another huge drop in egg prices today. January 21st, they were $6.55 a dozen. March 17th, $3.45 a dozen. The source is the USDA Daily National Shell Egg Index report. Thank you, President Trump. After years of being held captive by the EPA, Trump is officially making coal great again in the United States. How about that? Also, Data Republicans shared a spreadsheet showing federal grant money going to the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliated organizations in the United States. Here, literally, are the receipts. Your taxpayer money funding jihadis. The president's cabinet must be able to spend all their energies focused solely on delivering for Americans, not spending untold hours trying to answer the insane edicts of radical rogue judges usurping core Article 2 powers. Yes. And as I brought up today, the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court issued a rare statement rebuking Trump's calls for impeachment, but that's not what he's doing. Is not wrong, and it's not unconstitutional. In fact, the judiciary is supposed to be the weakest branch, and the Supreme Court of the United States and all the other lower courts do not have the power that they think they have. They are not the sole arbiter of what is or what is not constitutional. That is settled law after 250 years. But what they're doing is acting in an extra constitutional manner, and Trump is checking them on it. So yes, checks and balance work for a reason, and if they continue to do this, Congress should invoke Article 3 and remove their jurisdiction for certain things. Why not? Thomas Jefferson did it. Are you going to say he was wrong? Also, Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis has been ordered to pay more than $54,000 for violating the state's open record laws in relation to the prosecution of former President Donald Trump and now President Donald Trump. I love saying that whenever I can. General Michael Flynn has been appointed. Yes, he has been appointed to the West Point Board of Visitors, along with several others, to turn the direction of West Point back to where it should be. This is the first appointment that I know of, at least for General Flynn, and I would expect some more here in the near future. Also, Texas has made its first arrest of an abortion provider, AG Ken Paxton announces, and specifically the arrest of Houston area abortionist and crackdown on clinics providing illegal abortion is the direction that the Paxton team is going to take here in the near future, and it's about time. And I think other states are going to follow suit here very soon. Sarah Adams, from a source that has contacts in the Middle East. Now, this is something everybody needs to pay attention to. There is a growing interest in targeting hospitals with jihadis, and some of this is coming from chatter overseas that they are in the final planning stages, that they've already done pre-attack surveillance. Quote, it will be a VBIED, that is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, followed by an armed assault with hostages taken, end quote. This looks like 5 to 7 man teams are being deployed and trained. Do this inside the United States, which brings us to an alert coming to us from American Kinetics. Imminent ISIS-K threat to U.S. hospitals. You can see this for yourself. We're going to make sure we post this up online for all of you to share as well. I just reposted it on Twitter. So what do you do about this? Your church security teams and whatever your security team is for your business, most people have only been preparing for lone wolf attacks. This needs to expand to prepare for 5 to 7 person attacks. It might be in 2 waves. Some people call this a double tap attack, where they will attack first, and then when the law enforcement and first responders show up, they'll try to attack them. So prepare, change your training to meet the current threat and not the old one. To highlight this fact, multiple Tesla vehicles were set on fire in Los Angeles, which comes on the heels of the doxing of Tesla owners all over the country. This is the left preparing to foment violence inside the United States directed at people. They've already started to foment violence against property, and there have been some attacks against people, but this is an escalation in advance of May Day. And lastly, here in Spokane, Washington, ICE agents justifiably broke through a car window belonging to the Venezuelan gang members after they refused to exit. This is the second incident in Spokane in as many weeks. So this is touching every area of the country, including little old Spokane. Great job, Tom Homan. And that is the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. And when we come back from the break, James Patrick.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
And we're back. We have a couple of breaking news stories very quickly. Splashdown of Dragon confirmed. Welcome back to Earth. Nick, Suni, Butch, and Alex. That just happened. In fact, there's actually a real-time feed that those astronauts were finally rescued. Also, Trump readout of the call between him and Putin states that the Russians raised their demand for a stop to Western military aid to Ukraine if Russia is to accept the 30-day ceasefire deal. I understand that's probably going to be continued here in the near future. And then lastly, it does look like, and I'm looking at it right now, this just happened within the last 10 minutes. It looks like the JFK files have in fact been released as we're speaking right now. And there is a ton already up on the website. We're going to peruse through those, and next episode we will bring you some of the details out of the JFK files. That brings us to our guest today, James Patrick, a filmmaker, economist, and investigator who, in response to the global COVID lockdowns in 2020, directed the international documentary Planet Lockdown, which was shot in 9 countries and translated into 17 languages. And now he's got a new movie coming out, The Great Taking. James, it's great to have you on Patriot Radio. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you for having me again.
So let's talk a little bit about The Great Taking. What is it? Because a lot of people, I think, have no clue. This stuff gets hidden in the law. What is The Great Taking? Why should they care?
Well, basically, it's the biggest crime story in financial history. The highest levels of the finance industry have been using all of our stocks and bonds as collateral on their own trade. So when you buy a stock, it's really kept at a high level in pooled form at a trust in New York called Deposit Trust Clearing Corporation. And from there, the largest banks, the too big to fail banks, dip into it and use them as collateral on their own bets or derivatives, like the price of the dollar will go up, the yen will go down, the gold will go up, oil will go down. These sorts of bets, they're called derivatives contracts. And there's like 89 trillion of stocks and bonds in New York in a central securities depository called DTCC, and about a little over 40 in EU and the Euroclear in Belgium. There's 130 trillion of those. They've leveraged up about a quadrillion and a half or $2 quadrillion of derivatives contracts off of that 130 trillion base. So this is very unsustainable because they're playing with other people's money. They're playing with all of our savings. And this is everyone's pension funds, their IRA, the state retirement funds. Everything is wrapped up in this.
That's why a lot of people are moving their IRAs to gold, but I digress. We won't go there today. But the issue I see it as is it used to be that I would own my security. If I had it in my hand, I had the stock certificate in my hand, I would own the security. But what you're telling me, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that's actually not true anymore.
Yeah, it's actually not been true since the 70s in a big way. You can still get the physical share certificates, and then you have clear title, and they're not leveraging off of it. But in 1973, they created Deposit Trust Clearing Corporation. They started a process called dematerialization, which means to get rid of the physical paper certificates and have everything digitized, and getting everything dematerialized and kept in this pooled, fungible sort of in where every unit is interchangeable, pooled form in DTCC. Then that enabled them to be played with at a higher level. And when you buy a stock or a bond, your broker and their custodian, they have the bookkeeping entry saying it's your assets, but they have an account up at DTCC, and from there, DTCC doesn't have any record of the customers. So they created these different layers of the system, and most people, fund managers, even very sophisticated investors have no idea about this.
So let me get this straight. So if I've got the physical certificate, I'm in a better position. But if it's the digital, if I've just done a digital trade and it's just in the digital space, they could go bankrupt and use my property to pay off their debt based on their mistake.
Yeah, correct. So this started with dematerialization in '73 with the creation of these centralized securities depositories. Then from bankers I've talked to, I said, when did this practice really pick up speed? They were saying in the 80s it became widespread. Then 1994 they legalized it in the Uniform Commercial Code through revising Article 8 of the UCC. And there they invented two new legal concepts. One was that they substituted a direct ownership in a stock or a bond with a contractual claim or a stock or a bond. So they substituted your real ownership for it with a contractual claim, a securities entitlement, they call it. So now we're securities entitlement holders when we buy stocks or bonds. And the second thing is they said the secured creditors of those derivatives contracts that these securities get encumbered into many times over in what they call collateral chains of contracts. Your stocks or bonds get used once on one bet, and then they get reused again and again and again in these collateral chains. There's all these secured creditors to each contract, and they all have. So this Article 8 revision said that these secured creditors of the contracts have priority to the underlying security, the stocks or bonds, ahead of the entitlement holder, ahead of the real underlying owner.
What a scam! This is crazy.
It's a pretty big scam. Yeah, it's as big as it gets, really.
Do lawmakers know about this? I mean, is Congress aware of this? Are they going to take up anything to try to correct this?
Nobody knows about it. I mean, really, David Webb wrote this book 2 years ago, and I met him a year and a half ago, and now just me and him are running around talking about it. I mean, so that's why I'm on your show here, to get people more aware of this, so that they can call their lawmaker and say, look, we want some of these exceptions in Article 8 struck so that we can have clear title to our own assets, our own savings.
That is absolutely unreal. So, okay, let's go a little bit deeper than that. Okay. So, central bank digital currencies, okay? How would that be used as another layer here in this system to even obfuscate that? I mean, could they try to seize a central bank digital currency that was used to purchase something, or could that be also leverage? I mean, help me understand this. This is really complicated. Help the average person understand how this would affect them in their daily life.
The central bank digital currency thing is sort of a parallel but different issue. So it's at the same time, I guess similar interests are ushering in these more digitized, controllable, programmable form of money. The concerning thing about the stocks and bonds, the legal title issue, Article 8, is that the way that was written looks like it's in preparation for some kind of a collapse and a sweeping of all of our stocks and bonds in a sort of great taking, because the secured creditors do have clear legal title. So we know this really. I mean, when the Lehman Brothers Bank collapsed, Lehman was playing with all their clients' assets, and they went bust and they lost them. And JP Morgan was their custodian and the secured creditor of all these contracts. So JP Morgan took the assets, and the court case that was settled, I think 5 years later, ruled JP Morgan has every right as a secured creditor to take the client assets. There was also a change in bankruptcy law, safe harbor in 2005, that said basically the secured creditors can have total certainty that they can keep the client assets, even if there's fraud, even if like for example, with JP Morgan being the custodian and the secured creditor, that's kind of both sides of the deal. That would be considered constructive fraud prior to that change in the bankruptcy code. So there was all these changes made, legal changes that point to the conclusion that this is sort of the plumbing of the you'll own nothing and be happy, and then the CBDCs and these other sort of things may become more easy to implement in that kind of a collapsed society scenario.
When we come back from the break, James Patrick, bigpicture.watch with the great taking, we're going to talk about what they might be preparing for and more on how they're trying to leverage control over your assets and mine.
American business owners, you understand the power of TV. If you have a product that you want to sell to millions of like-minded Americans who value quality, hard work, and supporting the red, white, and blue, Supporting Patriots is the perfect place. If you're ready to bring your product to a patriotic audience eager to buy American, then contact us today at supportingpatriots.com and secure your spot on Supporting Patriots. Let's build a stronger economy. When we buy American, we support our future.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with James Patrick, a documentary filmmaker. His latest film, The Great Taking, bigpicture.watch. Okay, so James, I probably asked inarticulately my question about the CBDCs. Here's how I'm kind of just processing this. If they have leverage and access to my assets that are digital in one sphere, and they're not collateralized enough because CBDC, and you know where they're going with all crypto, it has one way in and it has one way out. They could also theoretically go after my other assets because whatever debt it was wouldn't be settled with just the original set of assets. That's kind of where I was going with this. So if you could comment on that, and then we'll get to what they're actually preparing for. Well,
I think your line of questioning is heading in the right direction, because there's they had a lot of success getting away with this till this point, and now cryptocurrency's been introduced. Bitcoin's been out for what is almost 20 years now. Then we got now there's a move towards tokenization of all assets. BlackRock is in my CBDC film, CBDC, there's this. I put a lot of quotes from Larry Fink there saying we want to tokenize all assets in the world, have a one world ledger with all the world's assets, which is really the establishment of a means of taxing and really kind of a default
slavery,
tax arrangement sort of thing, But we have noticed looking at the UCC as well that recently, the last year or two, they've been trying to slip in weird stuff on tokenization of assets, CBDC authorization language. So I think you're right to be looking in that direction, because if they've been using all the securities as collateral, if the biggest banks have been using everyone's stocks and bonds as collateral, the next move is really to use everything as collateral. Really, if we can make it tokenized, like an NFT was a unique identifiable ID number, an unforgeable, indelible barcode number or ID number for each physical asset, then the wet dream then is to go further and really tag everything in every blade of grass in the world, every person, object, thing, and then the collateral opportunity from there would be fantastic.
So you alluded to earlier, and really what you're saying implies that there would be some sort of massive shifting of assets from people to this group that is holding all of the higher level contracts and the higher level positions, which would presume also some sort of an economic collapse or dramatic downturn or war or something. How do you address that in the film, and what is kind of your thoughts on what they're actually preparing for?
Well, this film, Stop It, The Great Taking, you can watch it at thegreattakingreport.com. I'll also do a report on getting a technical report for people that want a more technical explanation of all the laws in this situation. But it's thegreattakingreport.com. But I don't really get into explaining that, but I can address it right now. But this film really follows the 2024 legislative season to correct the Article 8 in Tennessee and South Dakota. So we introduced this bill in Tennessee. Even a member of the Guggenheim family showed up to oppose it. And obviously had national significance. This is a very big banking family. Because if that was amended and property rights were restored, it wouldn't restore them immediately. It would just mean that new contracts could be written with the place of law in Tennessee that then the clients would have clear title. So it wouldn't unravel all the existing contracts, but it would give larger funds the ability to engage in new contracts. So the film is really to show people that we do have a shot of changing this in the first legislative season. Now this year in 2025, it's been introduced in 10 states. But the bankers have done a pretty good job of kind of scuttling all these bills, but we really haven't seen enough citizens supporting these things. I think just because people aren't getting it yet, but that's why I'm here on your show to explain this to people. Right. If you own any stocks or bonds, if you have a pension fund, IRA, anything in the market at all big funds, you can't have the share certificates. Now you can request a share certificate if you're just an individual owner with individual stock. But it takes 2 to 4 weeks to get the share. It takes 2 to 4 weeks to put it back, to trade it. And if we do go through a collapse scenario, there's really little you can do about it. All the prices are going to go down anyway. I mean, so the analogy here, and answer your initial question here, is the 29 crash. Is what happened in the 29 crash. The Wall Street revved up the market with these margin loans on stocks through the 20s. Crash called them in on 29. From 29 to 33, there was all these bank failures. And then in 33, FDR seized the gold, because the gold was the underlying foundation of the economic system at that time. Today, the underlying foundation of the economic system is the stocks and bonds, the securities that the derivatives complex is leveraged off of 10, 20 to 1, as I was saying. So this is the taking is the analogy is the gold seizure of 33, and that we could see a collapse, depression, and a 33 style seizure, but of the securities. And then if the 30s are any indication of what could happen, the central bank really let the deprivation sink in and go deep from 33 through World War II, really. So we could be prepared. We could be looking at a collapse type scenario, seizure of all the stocks and bonds. Almost no one could do anything about it. And then a sort of strong, deep deprivation. And then all these UN things about smart 15-minute cities, C30 initiative. You're not going to eat meat and dairy. You're just going to have a few pairs of clothes and be a little 15-minute peasant. All those sort of visions start to make more sense in this scenario.
So what can people do about this right now? I mean, how do we get this out? I know you gave a couple websites. I'd love you to do that again, but how can people really make their friends, their family aware? Because you got a lot of people going into retirement here in the next 10 years.
I would say just show them the trailer to the film. If they're interested, they can see more. I've written some technical papers on this. This report, I'm giving it for free to state legislators. I would say there's also, we have lawyers that have written these bills for all the state reps. So we have a legal team in place that'll help explain this to the state representatives. I'm available to do that too. So yeah, I mean, we have everything in place for people to put pressure on their state representatives. But I think the most important thing you can do is just take a minute, get your head around it, and call your state representatives and say, I'm concerned. My savings is at risk. You guys got to do something about it. I know there's a legal team here that can help us with this and, walk you through what this means. But I think no one can really hide from this thing. This is now a ubiquitous fixture of the financial system that we can't avoid.
Oh, wow. I presume as part of the testimony, some things came out in South Dakota and Tennessee in the last 2 minutes that we have left. What kind of were the highlights there? What should people know?
Well, I mean, Andy Guggenheim in cross-questioning admitted, he said, no, he denied it. He said, no, you have property rights to securities. This is about margin loans. It's not about that your assets are being used as collateral. You have a stake on your stocks. He said that. And then on cross-questioning, this member of the Black Caucus said, what are you doing with our securities? Are you using them as collateral? And Antonio Parkinson said, and he goes, well, I don't know if it's yours or somebody else's, and he's like, well, somebody's is, right? I mean, he on cross-questioning, he admitted, well, actually, yeah, this is basically the plumbing of the financial system, and that facilitates easy trade. But to basically be able to use everyone's stocks and bonds. So this is this kind of open secret at the very highest levels of the finance industry. In my questioning banking executives, a lot of them understood parts of this, but didn't quite put the implications together. So in the film, you can see it on Big Picture.watch with James Patrick. Big Picture James Patrick on my YouTube channel. You can watch the full testimonies, and on the greattakingreport.com, I have a page with all the testimonies, all the state testimonies. So you can see it there that it's admitted. He admits all the stocks are used as collateral.
I'm still shocked. I'm just kind of stunned. And I was in the state legislature for 12 years. This is the kind of things where you start looking at the details, and that's where they're hiding everything. James Patrick, great job, great work. Would love to have you back on again to kind of dive even deeper into this. I really appreciate your work and keep up the fight.
Yeah, there's more to it too. But yeah, thank you for having me. Huh?
All right, James Patrick, bigpicture.watch, thegreattakingreport.com. This is just an incredible story. Leveraging your assets and mine to make trades, collateralizing your assets in mind, putting our savings at risk, putting our retirement at risk. Just one more example of why we should look at physical assets as kind of going back to the simplicity of it toward the future. This is why we love Verity Metals and Matt Geiger. Great job there, taking people's IRAs and converting them into gold and silver. Absolutely fantastic company that does that. So if you're interested in that, you can contact us here at Patriot Radio, or you can visit veritymetals.com and just mention where you heard it, because it's important that we actually are sharing with everyone how to secure your future. If we didn't even get into this, there's a whole nother layer. We're going to get him back on. There's a whole nother layer to this of the retirement accounts in the next 10 years that are coming to fruition and being paid out would be the greatest that we've seen in the United States. So if a collapse happens, it's going to affect a gigantic amount of people. And I just had this sense as he was talking that it does seem like they are preparing for something, like they know something, if that's a war. And we've talked about it here on Patriot Radio about 2026, and all of a sudden this one website showed a massive population decline in the U.S. So there's something that looks like a shift of wealth being prepared, and we could stop it. And Trump is in the White House. He probably doesn't even have any clue about this. Neither does Elon Musk. So the fact that you heard it here on Patriot Radio, let them know about it, but also take a look at securing your own future. Having your IRA in physical gold is one way to do that. We're going to have James Patrick back on again. So what can you do? That's what you can do. Go check out veritymetals.com. Mention Patriot Radio. And I'm looking at this breaking news right now. We're going to end the show with some breaking news with the JFK files. One of the things that came up here as I was perusing this is a report on Oswald's stay in Finland in October 1959, including his contact with the Soviet consulate there. And they actually timed the drive, 25 minutes to drive from the airport to downtown Helsinki. By taxi, it would take no more than 5 minutes to reach the Soviet consulate. Soviet consulate probably closed at 1300 hours local time. So it looks like they were trying to establish this connection of Oswald and the Soviets. Now, there's been a couple books out on this specifically. One of them is, there's more on this Helsinki station, by the way. One of them was Disinformation by General Mihai Pachipa, the highest-ranking KGB general to defect to the United States. And in his book, he talked about how Soviet intelligence did have a play in this. Now, as we've detailed, it usually was a Soviet asset, NKVD, KGB, working with a U.S. asset, CIA, OSS, so they could point the finger at each other. So there's more to come here on the JFK files. Really interested in this. But that is all for today on Patriot Radio. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. We are alive in the greatest time in the history of the world. Enjoy it. The harvest is here. The awakening is here. Keep up the fight.